How do you, on the years those droughts and just not great, how do you go about that?
So when we first got into cattle, we'd had 2 good years essentially back to back. So we thought it was going to be easy money. We sold all the excess hay that we had. And then that very next year, it was a terrible drought year. And I realized it early we weren't going to have enough hay to feed our cows. So I sold half the cows to be able to buy enough hay to feed the other half while cattle prices were still good. Because by the time that fall rolled around, you almost couldn't give your cattle away. Because that was also one of the times in the cattle cycle where there were a lot of cattle in the national cattle herd. And so there was a huge excess of cattle. And so what we've done now is we keep an entire year's worth of hay in reserve and don't sell any hay unless we just absolutely have to for cash flow reasons.
Yeah.
And then I found a couple of ranchers that are gentleman farmers, and they're just looking for someone to come in and cut their hay and give them a reasonable price for it. So I'm working with them and paying them a reasonable price for their hay, and I'm buying all of that hay from them so they don't have to deal with hay customers or making little square bales or whatever. So we make it in big round bales and I haul it all off. And that does 2 things for me. Number one, it gives me a steady supply of hay that's great quality because they're retirees and they do a great job irrigating. Number 2, it's nutrients wise versus fertilizer. So nobody thinks about hay as fertilizer, but if you buying a ton of hay and you bring it onto your place, as long as it isn't infected with some kind of crazy mold or have too many weeds, you're bringing X amount of pounds of NPK fertilizer plus all the biomass, all the carbon that you're bringing on.
You said NPK?
Yeah, so yeah, you know, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So that's the typical 3 minerals that people talk about when they're talking about like conventional fertilizer, which we don't use any synthetic fertilizer. Everything that we do is either organic chicken litter, our own manure from our cows, or hay that we bring in from other sources and feed through our cows. And so when we're bringing that hay on, we might be depleting that farm's stores of nutrients, but we're bringing that on to build up. So we'll feed it in an area where we need additional fertilizer, bale graze, or roll it out just to build soil on our own place. And I don't think of it as like this is the cost of hay. I think of this is offsetting additional inputs from fertilizer that I'm first putting through a beef factory to then put out on the ground. And that's the thing that I'm trying to convince so many people to think about it in that way, because everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's so expensive. And I'm like, yeah, but if you're fertilizing anyway, stop fertilizing and just buy more hay, feed more hay. And then, because I mean, synthetic fertilizer is salts, and what it does to the soil and the soil microbes and mycorrhizae, and also all of your insects that live in the soil is something to pay attention to. And a lot of people just really don't. They're like, well, this is what extension tells us to do. This is what our soil analysis tells us we're supposed to do. And so that's what we're doing. It's a prescription, and that's just what we're gonna do without thinking of the downstream consequences.
That's why with the whole regenerative talk overall, I know it's very polarizing, especially in the agriculture world from the producer side, but so many that I have spoken with that were former conventional, now regenerative, one of the biggest things they've mind shift was actually taking care of the actual land, the biology, all of that. They never thought about any of that. They always pretty much just thought about extraction. And that's what, to me, why I like regenerative the most is it really shifts the thinking of it all, of how you view what you're stewarding, actually being a steward. Because to me, as a conventional farmer in a lot of ways, I don't want to lump it all together, but there's a lot of conventional farmers to where it is just an extractive method, and it might be beautiful, but they really aren't thinking about a lot of the things they should be thinking about, a lot of things that you're describing and do think about. And so, again, that's also why I tell people to shake the hand that feeds you, so you could actually talk and learn about these things.